The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Oh, I'm echoing around the place. It's Christine Joanna Hart, and it's the Christine Joanna Hart Show, and I'm broadcasting live from London in Kensington this afternoon, and it's sunny, it's hot over here. We've got a heat wave, so I'm going to chill out today. I've got an ice cold drink, and I've got a fascinating guest to bring you. I'm wondering, is he there? White Wolf, are you there?
I am here. Hello, Christine.
Hi there. I'm just going to tell my audience about you. It's a really unusual name, so I'm going to get used to it. Is that what everybody calls you, White Wolf?
Yes, it is.
It's lovely. It's beautiful. It's my power animal, by the way, the wolf. Gorgeous.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, beautiful. So just to run past the listeners, White Wolf van Atzigen is the founder of the Element Mountain and is the head instructor for all courses and guide for all events, excursions. White Wolf has extensive experience in the ways of the wild. In part, he trained in the wild during his youth under an old native medicine man and warrior. White Wolf will be the first person to tell that he's in nowhere medicine man or shaman. He always says that he's merely a guide. His native guide and teacher taught him the old ways of living with the earth. So that links in with all the spiritual programs we've been having recently. And just bringing on my guests now. So how are you tonight, White Wolf? And where are you? Whereabouts are you?
It's middle of the day here. It's northern Vermont. And I'm doing quite well. It's another cloudy day. We've been having about a week of clouds and got another week to go before we get any sunshine, but that's kind of typical for this time of year.
Oh, that's a shame. Is that up near Vermont? Is that up near Canada?
Actually, yeah, we border Quebec. I'm about 2 hours drive. Well, not even. About an hour and a half south of the Quebec border.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So I found you. I was searching, and I still can't remember what I was searching, but I found you, and I found your, is it the Element Mountain is your website?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I found your website, and it was just fascinating. Would you like to just tell the audience sort of, how you became the person you are, and just go through what happened to you and your childhood so we can all listen?
Okay, that's a rather big topic.
I know, but get stuck in. We've got tea biscuits and we've got a couple of hours. Where did you grow up?
Okay, well, for the listeners who are not familiar with me, I was born in Fort Dix Army Hospital. My father was in the military during Vietnam, and Fort Dix is in New Jersey on the coast. That's kind of where my life began. From there, my parents moved to the Appalachians of Pennsylvania when I was quite young. I think it was four years old, I believe I was. And so they decided that once my father got out of the military that they didn't want to raise me in New Jersey. Thank you for that. And so we moved into the foothills of the Appalachian Range in Pennsylvania. And that is where I pretty much grew up. And it was in the kind of northern, for anybody who knows southeast Pennsylvania, it was near the Blue Ridge.
Oh, lovely.
So if you end up going all the way up 501, you'll end up kind of dead ending in the Blue Ridge up there, and that's pretty much where I grew up. So yes, I was exposed to the outdoors all the time. We had a nice property, woods all around us, and I spent most of my time outside, and since we lived so far back, and this was in the 70s and early 80s, we didn't have any of the technology that we have today as far as digital and cell phones and computers and all that. We had a black and white TV with some rabbit ears and some tinfoil wrapped around the top, and on a lucky day we would get 2 clear channels. Otherwise it was complete fuzz. So I didn't spend my childhood in front of TVs or computers. So there wasn't much else to do besides go outside. And I was always more comfortable outdoors than indoors and with the natural world than I was around people. It's just kind of who I've always been. And so I really enjoyed where I grew up for that aspect of it. Didn't really matter what season it was, what the temperature was doing, whether it was raining or snowing or icing, I was outside as much as possible. As a matter of fact, in the summertime, I would sneak out my window, pop my screen out, and jump out my window so I could sleep out in the grass at night. And it was.
So you kind of had a sort of pagan kind of spirituality going on there for yourself.
Yeah, my belief systems have always been very. For most of my life, they've been very basic, very foundational. I'm very typically a very spiritual person, not in the sense of New Age or UFO religion stuff, but really down to earth, on the earth, as part of the earth. I believe in the connection I have to the earth, the forests, the elements, directions, seasons, trees and plants, sun and moon, my ancestors, all the relations, such as birds and fish, those who crawl, those who walk on 2 and 4 legs. Really life here and all around me. And my deepest connection and relationships to all of it is what I believe in. I do my very best to see the natural world and communicate with it, be fully part of it, like a single plant growing in kind of a never-ending wilderness, I guess. I believe in myself and my connection to life. And that's pretty much where my beliefs began as a child, and where they have returned to in more recent years through my healing path.
So what happened going back to that little boy? So there he was sleeping on the grass, and then what happened?
Well, when I guess if we go all the way back, I had a very rough childhood. It was a very difficult childhood. My family wasn't the idealistic family that, a child might hope for. But, not many families are, in my experience.
Was it your mother or father? Were they missing, or were they absent emotionally, or were they just outright abusive?
Well, there was a lot of abuse. Yeah.
Right.
There was a lot of abuse, and then from one side and from the other side, there was a lot of, there wasn't any protection offered from the other side. There was pretty much just kind of a turned eye. It was pretty much ignored.
It almost sometimes seems almost worse, because my same thing in my family, adopted family, and it's almost worse, isn't it? It's like complicit, isn't it, really? The ultimate betrayal, looking the other way or clinging on. I think sometimes women cling on to the man, don't they? And they think, oh, I can't actually function or exist without the man. And so the children get betrayed in a way.
Well, this was actually flipped side.
Right.
It was more my father who was kind of the absent party. And so, I had a rather difficult childhood. I did not feel safe in my home setting. There was nothing very predictable in my home setting. A great deal of my childhood, everybody in the family kind of walked on eggshells, so that the target individual wasn't triggered or set off, which didn't take a whole lot. But when I was 9 years old, I was at what was called the Aquila Council. It took place in the Lancaster, Lebanon region, and it was kind of a get-together honoring the Native American tribes that used to live in the region and their traditions and whatnot. And I was always fascinated with that aspect because it was so connected to the outdoors. And we had gone down there to visit. We were walking around, and that's when I originally met my childhood mentor, Mkultra. And it was a year later that I actually began learning from Mkultra in a more regular setting. And he was from the Lenni Lenape tribe, also pronounced the Lenni Lenape tribe, otherwise known as the Delaware. And they were a huge tribe in the Northeast, a very, very well-respected tribe. They were called the uncles or the grandfathers. They were believed by many of the tribes to be the original tribe of the Algonquin language structure. And Mkultra was 86 years old when I met him.
Wow.
And he had been living, a very, very spiritual life for his entire life. And he basically taught me pretty much everything I know about the outdoors, nature in general, as well as the traditions that his people once had, and the kind of the baseline foundational truths that he found through those traditions, combined with his own experiences through his long life. And he also began teaching me the warrior style that he learned when he was a very young child from his father, whose name was Pishk. And it was a combination style. They called it Small Circles of Five Animals Jiu-Jitsu. And it combined the system that was taught to their warriors, as well as a samurai system. And so that's where the five animals come from, and also where the jiu-jitsu aspect, the Japanese aspect, comes from. Because in the very early times of Pishk's life, when they were still living near the coast in Virginia, they ended up taking in a foreigner and sheltering him during that time frame. His name was Akita Moriko. And he had fled Japan. And this was around the time of the last samurai revolt. So there's, really just speculation as to why he left Japan, why he ended up landing on the East Coast and whatnot. But they ended up, Malachi Wagon, who was one of the sub-chiefs of the tribe at that time, he basically told Akita that he could stay with the tribe and move with them if he taught his warrior system to the youngest warrior of the tribe, and that was Pishk at the time. And he was only 4 years old. So he began his training when he was 4 years old. And he trained his whole life, and he ended up taking that system and teaching it to Mkultra, who in turn ended up teaching it to myself. And so I was very big into martial arts, my whole life, but really starting when I was 9, 10 years old. Not only did I study in Small Circles of Five Animals Jiu-Jitsu, which was my main style, and I continue with it today. Actually, the 10th degree black belt, I'm the owner of the style today. And I also, Mkultra basically told me, I'm not going to teach you anymore after 3 years of training unless you go out and study styles from other people so that you know what's out there. So that's when I started to branch out and started to take different types of kung fu and different types of Chinese martial arts and Thai martial arts like Muay Thai and Qigong and Tai Chi, and continued up through the various styles, still keeping Jiu-Jitsu as my base style. And because I had an extreme amount of aggression and anger growing up as a child because of my upbringing.
Uh-huh.
I began street fighting when I was about 13 years old. And, it was really just a way to vent my anger. And it was a really nasty crowd. Even today, the street fighting exists, and the crowds have certainly not gotten any better. As a matter of fact, from what I've seen, they've gotten a whole lot worse. But I would street fight, and it was through my exposure to the people while I was street fighting that I ended up getting hooked up with a cult.
Right.
And that unfortunately lasted a few years, a pretty intense time frame during my life, one of many of those few years. So I was still street fighting.
Which cult was it?
They called it the Lilith Cult.
Oh, right.
Um,
Satanic kind of thing.
Well, I'm not really sure you could label it as satanic. There were, it was based around the Lilith worship, the ancient Sumerian queen, and also the summoning of Moloch, who was, in some studies, Moloch was also known as Nimrod. They were kind of a facet of Lilith, so to speak.
Right.
And there's literally dozens of names for both Lilith and Moloch throughout the years. You can research the name and you can just find, lists and lists depending upon what age you're looking at in the belief systems of time period. But, this entity, this deity, this goddess, she has been worshipped for an incredibly long time. Originally she was connected with storms and disease and death and sacrifice. And Moloch was the pagan god of children's sacrifice. So, all in all, it was a really nasty cult. They practice sexual ritual. They practice ritual sacrifice. And as a matter of fact, I just got done writing a 6-page article on my website dealing with this topic.
Right.
So if anyone wishes, they can go to Element Mountain, go all the way to the bottom of the homepage to the search box. And when you get all the way to the bottom, let's see, I've got to remember what the heck I titled it. Checking.
And were they sacrificing people or animals?
Both.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I titled it Cult Reality of Lilith and Moloch. Moloch is spelled M-O-L-E-C-H. So anybody can hop on over there if they care to read in more detail about my experiences with that. But yes, they would hold ceremonies specific times of the year, and the ones that were pretty much aligned with worshiping Lilith itself always took place on the eve of the new moon. The Moloch ceremonies, they took place at a variety of times. It wasn't just on the eve of or on the new moon. It was also on the last quarter of the moon. Sometimes it was on the first quarter of the moon. So they fluctuated a little bit more. And I was a slave. I was connected to my handler at that time. And she was rather high up in the cult. And the cult I was in, it was based out of the Philadelphia region of Pennsylvania. And I have actually been working diligently with a professional who deals with cult survivors. And he has an impressive awareness of cult activity in the United States. And he's a part of numerous national cult survivor therapy and group support groups. And he ended up doing a lot of research into the areas I was telling him, the buildings that the rituals took place in, and he ended up verifying quite a lot. And he's been helping me over a number of years now to kind of diffuse the memories from that. On the mental aspects, I've come a long way. The issue yet is the physical aspects. The cellular memory still remembers and still gets triggered, still reacts. So, it's a long road, it's a long path, but it was a pretty intense time frame. And even though it took place when I was in my early and mid-teens, it affects you very deep and for, obviously a very long time. But my handler at that time, who was part of that cult, was also involved with the Central Intelligence Agency. And she was my original connection. And even though the cult, I have never been able to find an actual direct connection from the cult to the Central Intelligence Agency. But I'm sure my involvement with the cult and my meeting of my handler in the cult was orchestrated in some sort of preparation phase to get me ready for the training facility, which is what I call it. Because when I was in my mid-16 year, I was recruited, you might say, into what was known as SOES, Shadow Operations Extermination Squad. And that was Division 10. And this was a branch division of the Central Intelligence Agency, and it was a training program that trained assassins. And I've spoken a great deal about this and have written an incredible amount about this for the past 9 years now. As a matter of fact, I stopped talking about it about 3 years ago. And this is, I believe, the first time I've kind of decided to accept talking about it again, and since those 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm honored.
I'll just briefly detail my involvement with that, since I have so much information out there. But I was in that training facility for 3 years. I was taken in 1987.
Right.
And I ended up graduating the facility in 1990. And my entire training was during the time frame of William Webster, who was the CIA director at that time. And it was also during the time frame of Ronald Reagan. And so it was in the late 80s. It was a programming and mind control organization that was based off of Mkultra. And Mkultra, for those of you, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know what Mkultra is, but for those that might not, I'll just briefly detail.
Okay.
It came out of Project Paperclip, which took place after World War II. Project Paperclip was a project in which the United States government decided to take German scientists and doctors from the projects in Germany during World War II and bring them to the United States with all their research and employ them here to continue the research. And so that was really 1947-ish. And so once we ended up getting those doctors over here, this was not the only place that was working on mind control projects. In the early 40s, Dr. Estabrook became really the first doctor to bring mind control into Western medicine. He was teaching doctors how to hypnotize clients and use the power of suggestion to get people to do what they wanted, what they were told. Then in 47, We also had Dr. Watkins, and interestingly, he learned how to induce criminal behavior and mind patterns in his clients through hypnotic power of suggestion. And then in the 40s and the 50s, we had Dr. Ewan Cameron. He came from Scotland onto Ontario in Canada. And he was really the one who began the Monarch program, where he was forcefully, under torture and drugs, fracturing the minds of people and programming the different parts of their brains that had fractured to become slaves, in that case, sexual slaves. So when we ended up getting into the MKUltra project, we ended up getting into Project Bluebird, Project Artichoke, the MKUltra in the 50s and 60s, and even the very early 70s. There was dozens of MK projects. I mean, we had Bluebird. Well, we had, let's see, I think we had MK Chatter in 47, I think it was, and then we had Bluebird in 50. 51 came Artichoke, and then we had a whole list. We had MK Zeno and MK Rocco and Naomi and Hatter and Dancer and Reach, Dormouse and Span and Spellbinder, Amber Watchtower, MK Ultra, and the last one was MK Search. This was in the very early 70s, very end of the 60s, during the wrap-up of the Vietnam conflict. And that was a project through the CIA where they were trying to find the ultimate truth drug. And then, of course, the government came forward because of the pressure of the people and said, well, we need to close this project down and you need to expose all your documents. Well, the CIA understood that this was coming. So they had been working for a long time and destroying as many documents as they possibly could. So when they had to go to court and release those documents, declassified documents, they still had an incredible amount of documents that they had to declassify and release for public information, but it's only a fraction of the documentation that they did have for all these projects. So all this is extremely well documented, and even today, if you want to, you can get a hold of these documents. Just contact the Library of Congress and ask them. You can purchase. You can just say, well, I want to buy the declassified documents on MKUltra, and they will actually send you in the mail a CD that you can slip into your computer, and you can scroll through over 15,000 pages of declassified documents from those projects.
Have you got that? Did you send off for that?
I did not, but I had somebody else who did, and so I have looked through a great many of those papers in the last 10 years or so.
Right.
It's pretty impressive as to how many documents were obtained and laid out, and the amount of detail about the projects and what they were doing, mind control and programming, fracturing people, torturing people, trying to create slaves, hypnotic suggestion, triggers and alters, the layering of them, the hierarchies.
Do they use magic to do that? Do they use something called the Key of Solomon? They use something involving Sephiroth. That's what I'd heard. Or I mean, is that used when they split the soul parts?
I never. I can't say as I have ever been aware of so-called magic being used during those procedures. From my memories, it was anything but magical. The first thing they did after I went into the training facility is they put me through the psychic driving phase. And the psychic driving phase is the breaking phase. And so they torture you until you break, until your mind breaks.
Right.
And so I was electrocuted and waterboarded. They put me in sensory torture cubicles. They were very thick acrylic boxes that were only big enough for you to lay down in a fetal position in. So they would shuffle you in there naked, and they had hoses and wires and stuff hooked up to the thing. They would blast sounds of all kinds into the box. They would fluctuate the temperature from freezing cold to so hot that you felt like you were suffocating. They would send electrical shocks through the box. It was, it was nasty. I had to have an MRI a few years ago, and when I was in the MRI, I had some really horrible flashbacks of being in that box. It was it's a nasty time period. But so they inject you with different types of drugs, hallucinogens, stimulants, suppressants, all kinds of things to take you out of your center, to force you out of your center. They don't let you sleep. They don't let you eat. They don't let you drink. And they continue to come into the room, and they want you to willingly, under torture, tell them that you want to go ahead with the project, with the training.
Right.
So they can use that against you later on. And that psychic driving phase takes as long as it needs to take until you break. Once you break, then they use drugs, hypnosis, black acupuncture. They use frequency machines. They use dialogue. All of that is used at that time to physically program you. And so they single out fractured areas of your brain, and they end up testing those areas of your brain to find out what kind of personality, what kind of sectioned personality is connected to those parts of your brain. And then they record that, and they enhance those gifts, those skills, those areas of your personality in a way that can serve the overall programming process. And then they layer it with triggers, a wide variety of triggers, and the altars are layered in a hierarchy that's based upon alpha, delta, beta, omega, gamma, theta, things like that. And so these are all structured in your brain through these very physical, technological formats until they can create a person that they can fully control. They can flip you in and out of alter personalities, and they can get you to embark upon missions, tasks, whatever they give you, without question. And this was the purpose of the training facility that I was in for 3 years. And during the programming phase, they're sectioning areas of the brain to be able to train and build elite level skills in combat, tracking, pretty much everything you need to know for the purpose of assassination. So by the time you leave the training facility, you are as much of a robot as a human can be. And that's really what they're trying to program, what they were trying to program people to be, controllable robots. Now, SOAS was closed down in the, I believe in the early, no, it was in the late 1990s. Mid to late 1990s.
Right.
And of course, to backtrack just shortly, you're assigned handlers in the training facility. And these are people who have your trigger codes. They are connected to you. You are programmed to recognize them. You are programmed to obey them. You are programmed never to harm them and protect them if needs be. And so the woman who was high up in the Lilith Cult, who was my handler in that cult, was also my handler in the SOAS project.
Right.
And so I graduated in 1990, and I went on to do mission work for officially for 13 years. But then there were some unofficial assignments for another 3 years after that, until, well, I was poisoned in 2005.
Right.
And I spent most of autumn and winter bedridden. By the time late spring came around, I was well enough to be moved. And so that's when my wife and I relocated into the state of Vermont, kind of away from everything. And it was really for the purpose of my healing.
What happened when you were doing the missions? Did you were you paid by your handler, or did you have contact with the CIA or some of their agencies, their cover agencies, or was it just your handler?
Everything came through my handler.
Right.
In the beginning phases, when I had to go back for different levels of advanced training, I was in contact with the head of the training division that I was part of, Division 10. He would contact me on occasion, and he would let me know where I was supposed to go, what time period I was supposed to go there, and how long I was going to be wherever I was going. And it was, like I said, for advanced training. But after the advanced trainings were complete, and that spanned about 5 years, then the only contact I had after that was through my handler.
Right. And what happened? Did you shoot people, or was it more close quarters, if you don't mind me asking? Sorry.
I wasn't a sniper. This was a close quarter division.
Right.
I mean, yes, we were trained for sniper units, but that was not my specialty. My specialty was close quarter combat, and so that's what my missions involved. Very close, very personal, very face to face.
Did you kill many people?
I had over 200 missions.
Gosh,
in
that's a lot.
16 years. So yeah, it was a nasty business. It was a brutal time of my life. I sustained more injuries than I can count. I have the medical records to prove it, and today I still work with chronic pain and all kinds of issues from injuries that didn't heal right, or injuries that left their mark. And unless I have some pretty invasive surgery, they really can't be easily fixed up. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't expected to survive the poisoning. And it took me 6 years to actually recover my system well enough from the poisoning that I could continue functioning, in a fairly normal state in life. But my body has not been the same since.
Do you think they were trying to just shut you up after you'd worked for them?
Well, yes, because in the later years of my training, I became more fully aware of the greater scope of everything, and I wanted out. And I told them I wanted out. And they said, well, that's not a possibility. There's really only one way out of these projects. And that's, of course, you're out of project, you're also out of physical life. And so, the The division was dissolved. I heard it was because of financial reasons. It was financially unfeasible to have such a specifically targeted unit, and so they were going to broaden the skills that were being taught in that unit into greater projects where they could, cut down on funding, and they could end up training people in a much wider scale of trainings and techniques than we were taught. Their training protocols, their programming technologies had increased to the point where they didn't have to play on such small terms anymore. They could broaden it and really condition people to accept a greater scale of skill and information. And so the head of the training facility, he was shuffled off into another project, but it was him. It was not the agency who ended up poisoning me. As far as I know, and I could be completely wrong on this, but the agency pretty much shuffled me under the rug after I was poisoned. Maybe they figured, this guy's never going to be, what he was. We can't use him anymore. Whatever. I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. But all I know, because I was told, in my book, I wrote about an old man who I called Amon. He was my inside contact, somebody that I somewhat trusted. And he's the one that ended up telling me that trying to remember the guy's name in the book. I think I gave him the name Blake. He was the head of the training facility, that he was sending a hit my way. And so, like I said, I don't think it was the agency directly who targeted me. I believe it was more of a side target. But interestingly enough, my handler she never let me go. She continued to handle me in her own ways. Even though I was no longer affiliated with the CIA, she continued to try to handle me through the cult aspect and try to get me to do projects for her own personal and cult wishes and needs. And so the unofficial aspect that I spoke about earlier, that's where that comes into play.
Right.
The last 3 years of work were actually being done for her directly.
Right. And that was that killing people as well, or other things?
It was both, yeah.
Right.
It was basically targeting people who were trying to either get out of the cult, who were trying to speak up about the cult, things of that nature. And it was also trying to get information and, dirty work.
Do you ever think of coming forward to the cops and confessing and whistleblowing, or you think it's not worth it and you can't remember who they were now anyway?
Whistleblowing what exactly?
On yourself, sort of, confessing and sort of whistleblowing on the CIA, that particular mind control unit. But I suppose you're doing that anyway, aren't you?
Well, I don't like to. I don't like to title what I've been doing for the last 9 years as whistleblowing, because I'm really not targeting the CIA in any way. All I'm doing is presenting information from my experiences to whoever is interested, not for the purpose of saying, well, let's create a little army and go attack the government, because I will tell you 100% right now, you will never get anywhere. If you look at the history of the Central Intelligence Agency, if you look at all the lawsuits that have ever been brought against the Central Intelligence Agency, you will see that it is a losing battle. Nobody ever wins. You don't. I mean, there are people out there who continually spend every ounce of their energy and life trying to, fight the NSA and the CIA and, all these different agencies, including agencies in different parts of the world. And when it comes down to it, I don't have that energy. I really don't. I have advanced stage 1 adrenal exhaustion. I have extremely high elevated levels of cortisol, which suppress my immune system, slowly degrade my body. I have my spleen has never fully recovered from the poisoning. I have chronic lead poisoning, of which I am currently trying to build up enough energy so that I can go through a 12-week chelation process to get that out of my body, because at this point I don't have the energy to go through that therapy. So, if other people are young and gung-ho and they've got all this energy and they want to face the horns and beat on the bull's head, go for it. But I don't. I really don't. And I've been through so much that I really just want to move on with my life. Accept what was, embrace what is, and get on with my life, get on with my healing. Yes, I'll present information through articles and whatnot, just again for awareness purposes, but that's really about it.
Do you feel guilty about the people you murdered?
Yes, I have been working with professionals for a number of years because I do have guilt, I do have shame, I do have anxiety. I've been diagnosed many years ago with complex personality or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I work with that on a daily basis. Absolutely. These are things that I do deal with. And the whole process of what I've learned through therapy is very interesting because I never tied anything all the way back to my childhood. But the abuse I received in childhood set my mind up for the submission to the cult, the submission to the programming and the mind control project, and I was angry. It's just the way it was. I was enraged inside. Through therapy, I found that my rage, predates my conscious memory, because the abuse began before I could formulate conscious memory. So it was part of my brain before I actually could consciously remember.
That was your mother. Was she violent or sexually abusive or both?
No, just violent.
Right.
The sexual abuse came later with the cult.
Oh, right.
And this all took place, and that's why I went into street fighting. I was street fighting because I was angry, and I didn't know the grander scale of why I was angry. I mean, by that time, yes, I had many conscious memories of physical abuse, in my childhood, and so that was definitely there. But once I got into the cult, there's a fair bit of brainwashing in the cult. I mean, I was asked by a few people that know about this, well, why don't you just leave? And, that's a really good question. But the answer, is really founded in the darkness of any cult, and that's brainwashing. I remember being threatened in every single ritual that I was part of, while under forced drug influence, while they would smear blood from whatever sacrifice they had made on my body. Before every ritual, my handler would inject me with a syringe in the upper arm. And so, I would be forced into these rituals in a drug state from the very beginning. And while I was in those situations and after the energy of these rituals, which were very, very traumatic, I was not in a center place at all. And my brain was very vulnerable. And I was told, I specifically remember, because I was told so many times, that Moloch would be very displeased if I spoke about any of it, or I tried to leave or disobey my nanny. Nanny was the code name they gave to the handlers in that cult, because they were all female. And that I would, I guess it had probably some reference to the prominence of the monster-type goat figures that were associated with Lilith in the past. But I was told that Moloch would hunt me through life and death if I displeased him, and when he caught me, I would burn eternal in his fiery gut. Because
And you believe that?
Well, I was 13, and I was traumatized by the drugs and the ritual, sexually opened.
Right.
Yes, I believe that. I saw what they did in those rituals. I would not put anything past them.
What did they do?
The rituals involved, and I actually explain one of the rituals in that article that I mentioned earlier on my website for anybody who wants to read it. They bring you into the room, and the room was always pure white. The entire room was white. And the only color in the room was red. They had a red pentagram painted on the floor. They had a giant red bull and owls painted on the ceiling. And the people that were in the room, there were 9 figures up in front. They were kind of the leaders of the ceremony. There was 9 figures, and they were cloaked in white, and they had white hoods. And they would have various females also cloaked in white in different areas of the space. And they were kind of the directors.
White Wolf, can you hold it a sec? We're just having some adverts, and they'll just be 3 minutes. You can have just a short break if you mute and then continue on.
Okay.
Brilliant, thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi there, welcome back. It's Christine Joan Hart, Christine Joan Hart Show, broadcasting live from London. And it started off really sunny here, but it's now deteriorated and it's absolutely freezing cold. So I took the chance in the break to get a blanket and a hot water bottle. And I have so lucky to have a fascinating guest, White Wolf von Atzigen, and he has been an assassin for the CIA, and he is just telling us a story of the cult that he was in when he was 13, and we went to break. So White Wolf, please do carry on with that. What went on in the room, the white room, red pentagram, painted on the floor. And sorry, continue on, please.
Yes. So back to the room, if we must.
Sorry.
The room was in a basement of an old brick house. Actually, the one that I remember most was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And like I said, the whole room was painted white, besides the dark red. And I was always made to wear it was a chain around my neck that was also dark red. My handler would put that chain around my neck as a symbol of a slave, really. And, along the one wall, you had 9 figures, cloaked, hooded, pure white cloaks. And, because everything was white, they kind of blended in with the wall itself, since everything was white. And the lighting was also very weird in that room. It was very difficult, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with whatever drugs they pumped me with. But it was very difficult to make out natural divisions between the walls, the flooring, the ceiling, the entire space ratio, the dimensions of everything. They just seemed very weird. And there was a dark red snake and 2 owls standing beside it that was painted in the room. And then there was a human figure with the head of a giant bull that was underneath it. And that was directly above the center of the room on the ceiling. And below it was a 5-pointed dark red star. And the star, is 6, 7, 8 feet across, so it was pretty big. And my handler, she also had a dark red cloak. And there was flowers. I'm guessing they were lilies. And they had been painted on different areas of the walls. And I know the one was a door. So I think they were all marking doors, but I'm not sure. There was always chanting. I just remember a lot of chanting. I can never understand the language that the chants were in. They certainly were not English. I don't know what they were. They could have been some kind of Middle Eastern language. Wouldn't surprise me, since that's kind of where the whole Lilith aspect came out of.
Are they still going?
I would be very surprised if they weren't, yeah.
Right.
I mean, the cult professional that I'm working with, he said in his profession, at least in this region, it's pretty rare to come across a survivor from the Lilith cult. He didn't expand on why. I can only guess that maybe the cult is dwindling, maybe there's more activity overseas with it. Maybe there's just not a lot in this region where I'm living now. I don't know. But doesn't really matter to me anymore.
Oh.
And so anyway, the rituals were very tantric in orientation. So any slave that was brought into the room, any other female that was brought into the room, or any other child that was brought into the room besides these cloaked figures, didn't have any clothes on. And anybody who was guided into the room was guided by 2 of the cloaked figures that stood by the flowers, which, like I said, were probably doorways. At least the one was. I only remember the one opening and closing over in the corner of the room, and that's where they would guide. They would guide other females and other kids out. And all the activity, the actual tantric activity would take place on that star, on the floor. I was, well, I was used as one of the beasts in the ritual that were connected to some of the legends of the Lilitu, which is Lilith. So I was forced through the brainwashing and the drugs and whatever into sexual activity with whoever was in that star, whichever female that they brought out in the star. And it was always females that they brought out. And the they would always end up ending in a sacrifice. Most of the time, in the ones that I was involved with, I was the one who was supposed to bring about that sacrifice. And then once the sacrifice was complete, and during the sacrifice, prayers were being said to Moloch, asking for his basically arrival and his energy to be brought into the room and flow through all of the cloaked figures and enhance their connections to Lilith and the Dominion race that she was supposed to eventually bring about that would completely annihilate the human race as we know it today. I mean, they had all kinds of crazy, wild ideas. But, you know, the reason Lilith was so connected with, you know, killing children and killing and torturing maidens, you know, young women, fertile women and mothers is because in the legends she was unable to bear children unless it was the child of this elite bloodline. And so she tormented children and she tormented anyone who could give birth to children.
Right.
And the connection to Moloch is Moloch fed on the children. The children were burned alive. As a matter of fact, you know, even today, there is talk, I don't know this personally, but there is talk of different places like Bohemian Grove, I think in California, where some high leaders, presidents and government people and whatnot gather, I think once a year or whatever, for a ceremony to honor Moloch, and they sacrifice children and do all kinds of weird stuff. Like I said, this is just stuff I've heard. I do not know if it's a fact or not. All I know that
it's why are they honoring Moloch? What do they think he's done?
It's not so much what he has done; it's what he brings. There were two prayers that were offered in the ceremonies. In the one ceremony that I was rarely a part of, the actual honoring of Lilith, I'll read it to you if you want. The one where they honored Lilith, the prayer goes, "Come descend, O demon queen of Malekuth, thou queen of hells, thou mother of harlots and flesh abominations of the earth, O maid of desolation. I call for death, I will for death, I open for death. Come descend, O bride of Samael, thou maid of tempest and lust. Come descend, thou screech owl, thou howling cat, thou torturous serpent. I call for death, I will for death, I open for death. Come descend, O mare of night, thou owl of darkness, holder of the raging bull." That would be, of course, Moloch. "Come descend, O female of night, thou woman of whoredom. I call for death, I will for death, I open for death." And then there was a long list of names in foreign language that would be invoked for the ritual. And it usually ended, from what I remember, is either thou maiden who sees the light or thou maiden who consumes the light. The other one, which I heard far more often because they were part of the rituals that I was used in, was directly to Moloch. And it goes, through fire and blood he shall descend upon us. Of iron and flame he shall create. Thou great bull, demon child eater, hear our secrets. I call for sacrifice, I call for blood. O demon of lust and pain, feeding on children's screams. Through the scarlet woman you rage onto the earth. I call for sacrifice, I call for blood. Track through ash and bone, raise the flames to torn heaven aloft. Thou strip the earth bare of joy, plow the blood path for storm, and devour hearts of mothers. I call for sacrifice, I call for blood. Thou raging bull king of sun, thou raging bull king of flame, descend upon us through blood and ember. Now through drum and flute pass through the fires of Moloch. His energy, they believe, basically plows the way for the new coming of Lilith's seed, this new dominant genetic race of humans. They believe that his coming and his energy strips bare the earth and destroys all that is sacred, all that is good and light of this human race to bring only darkness, the void, in which Lilith can then create and bring forth out of that darkness the new world of human beings.
Right. Is that still that's still going on? Obviously, they're still, yeah. Mm.
As far as I know, it is still going on. I mean, the guy that I have been working with in the healing space, he is fully aware of it. So I'm sure it's still a thing. Yes. Yeah.
And so, what happened? How did your healing take part? What happened there? You went with your wife to live in Pennsylvania, and how did you heal?
Well, actually, we moved away from Colorado because that's actually where I was poisoned. And once I was well enough to move, we ended up coming back to Pennsylvania. And at the time, we were like, well, we need to go somewhere. I can't heal at the elevation we were living at and the arid climate. And so we needed to go someplace that was more conducive to a nurturing energy. And the Appalachians are a very nurturing energy in that aspect, a very nurturing climate. So we went back to Pennsylvania because I knew it. But of course, after we were in Pennsylvania for 4 months, I think it was, and I had been used by my handler to embark on a mission of her design. We said, no, this is not the place for us. We need to leave here. And so my wife was applying for jobs around the country. She's got a master's degree in chemistry, and she found a place in northern Vermont who wanted to hire her, and so they moved us up here. And we moved way back on a dead-end dirt road up in the mountains. Very good place to start my healing because I was still in really, really bad shape, mentally and physically. And that was where the really hardcore start of my healing began and started to take place. And during that time frame, it was very difficult. I was in a very vulnerable state. And, these days, I don't really have any idea what anyone's talking about on the internet anymore. I haven't read or listened to other sites, shows of any kind in at least 3 or 4 years. I have no interest in the game. I've come to the realization that if I can't get it from my own experiences and insights or through my personal healing path, then I don't need it. And from what I saw for years, is that there's a little more out there beyond a lot of drama and craziness mixed in with little bits and pieces of truth here and there. And I really don't have any use for that drama and craziness. And during that time frame, it was very difficult because I was trying to heal on my own, and my wife was trying to help out, being the kind, loving soul that she is. And she ended up finding different websites from different people, and she would copy and print the different things at work and bring them home for me to read, just in small pieces. And then we got a computer, and I started to kind of look on my own and start to read these things. But it was a very difficult time frame. I should have just avoided it completely because it really led me astray greatly. It was a really, really difficult distraction from myself, and I fell prey to the beliefs of others. I became swept up in their theories and their ideas, their religions, even though most of them refused to call what they believed a religion, but since it was all structured and contained judgments and control systems and reward and punishment, it was all in fact a religion. And I really wanted to believe that there were good-hearted people out there who knew what they were talking about and who could help. And so that left me open for, like I said, being led astray and being used as a puppet for those kinds of people. And since I was very distraught in early stages of healing, I didn't see it until it almost destroyed me. And once I found that realization, I was really astounded at how far I allowed myself to stray from my core and my path and all that I am. And so I removed all ties to any groups and organizations and people that represented anything close to it at all. I stepped back completely. I ditched my old business, and I removed myself from visiting or reading or listening to any other sites on the internet. And I vowed I would never again be dissuaded to abandon myself and all that I stand for anyone. Like I said, if I can't get it from my own experiences, and through the personal healing path, then I don't need it. So today, if I feel myself slipping in any way, I step completely back from my business, emails, phone, basically any kind of social or business engagements until I feel solid again. Because I do not want to be led into what I got wrapped up in before. So in the past 4 years or so, I've done that many times for days, weeks, and even months. For the last 2 winters, I have stepped almost entirely back from my business and completely focused for 3 to 4 months each winter just on my healing. Right now I'm just starting to come out of the cabin, so to speak, and start to get back into writing some articles, doing this radio interview here, and scheduling some things, some events for my school this summer. But it was 4 years ago that I returned fully to myself and primitive spirituality based upon the primal, global, and essential energies of this world that I spoke about earlier. I've been utilizing therapy for a number of years now, and it has been greatly helpful in my awareness and seeing the connections to many different areas of my life that were just complete chaos. The therapists that I've been using are some of the best. They are in this country. They're extremely well versed in military, black ops projects, cult abuse, all that stuff. They do their research. They have looked at my files. They have dug through medical records. They have talked to people. They have seen the reality of, what I have told them. And it has also helped me because, you can't pull the wool over people's eyes like that for years. That's what they do, They uncover things that are not truthful in people's lives, and they help people sort things out. And there's only 3 organizations in this entire country that I recommend full-heartedly to anyone who thinks they want to or need to heal from mind control projects, cult projects, brainwashing projects. That's it. Those three are it. I have researched this a great deal, and I do not trust anyone else. The first one is called the Colin Ross Institute. He's got three major institutes. One is in Texas, the other is in Michigan, and the other is somewhere in California. He has done an incredible amount of research about the MKUltra projects. He has been a professional therapist for his entire adult life. He has helped an incredible amount of people that have come out of projects. But he deals with all kinds of trauma, just not mind, just not the mind control and the cult aspect. He opens it up to all traumas. But he's got a wonderful website, and his staff are incredibly kind and helpful. Very well versed. He's also got some really, really great books out there. The other one is
what are his books?
They're all listed on his website. The CIA doctors. He's got case studies of clients who have come out of cults, who have come out of mind control projects. The pharmaceutical fraud. The drug pushing psychiatrists. He talks up against them. Similar to Peter Breggins, who was also a really, really well-known, top-notch therapist who is completely against the use of pharmaceutical drugs to supposedly help people heal from trauma. And he does a great job in talking about how to heal from guilt, shame, and anxiety.
And how do you spell his name?
Which one, Collins or Breggins?
Oh, both actually. Peter Breggins, B-R-E.
Yes, it's P-R-E-G-G-I-N, Breggin.
Yeah. That's
Peter R. Breggin. And the other one is Colin Ross, R-O-S-S, Colin A. Ross Institute.
Okay, I'll just make a note of that. Yeah.
The other one is the...
Sorry, carry on.
The other one is the Boston Trauma Center, and it was founded by Bezel van der Kolk, also a globally renowned trauma therapist, an incredible individual who's written an amazing amount of books. I think the last one he wrote was called The Body Keeps the Score, exceptional book. He has opened up numerous institutes around the country and has trained an amazing amount of people who are also spreading out around the country to offer very, very refined, specific help for anyone who has endured any kind of trauma. The last one that I know of is called the Shepherd Pratt. It's out of Maryland.
Right.
And that's Shepherd with 2 P's and Pratt with 2 T's.
Right.
If somebody's looking to genuinely heal from cult, mind control, programming, these are the only places that I have found that I would recommend.
And are they very expensive?
It depends on the program. They have outpatient programs. They have inpatient programs. Some of them will email you for free. Some of them have a great deal of written information that they will give you for free that can help you along. So there's really various levels for various cases that people can really pick through, and they will help you choose, different programs and information that would best suit your needs. So they're very helpful, and no, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get the help that you need.
Excellent. And did you have various altars? Did they split your soul? Because you spoke about shamanism. Did you use soul retrieval to get parts back?
Personally, I don't believe in the ability to split your soul. I know that's contrary to what a lot of people are talking about these days, but I do not believe in soul retrieval. I believe the soul itself cannot be tainted. It cannot be destroyed. I think that the soul is outside the realm of this physical world's reach. What can be ruined in this life is your brain. And your brain is not your soul. See, that's why we can heal. If we can heal the brain, then we can get on with our life. I have known personally many people who have tried to go to these soul retrieval places, and they try to get these people to retrieve and heal their souls. And, these people, this is honest to goodness truth. These people come to me and they say, I just went through this great soul retrieval thing, and this guy ended up, retrieving, 25 or 50 different pieces of my soul, and he put them all back together. And I said, wow, that's wonderful. How do you feel? Well, at first I thought I felt okay, felt different, but I said, okay, that's great, but how has your life changed? And they said, well, it really hasn't. I said, so how is that possible? If they could actually do that, if it broke and you actually brought all those pieces back together, wouldn't you think that you would have an instantaneous, absolute, miraculous healing, and your life would be completely better? You would have none of the issues you had before. How could you possibly, if it was all based upon your soul being broken, and then some guy comes together and tells you he put it all back together, like Humpty Dumpty? I don't believe that works. But I have seen, and I have experienced myself, that if you target the brain in healing and the body, and you engage very real, very physical, hands-on, very dialogue-oriented therapies, that brings noticeable progress. Yes, it is, of course, slower than somebody saying, I just put all 50 pieces of your soul back together. But it works. And so, I don't like to, to discount other people's experiences and what other people are claiming to do. All I can do is speak from my own experiences and what I have witnessed. And so that is why I have a pretty firm standing in my own life that's a distraction away from the real healing. And the real healing takes time. It takes a lot of energy investment, a lot of willpower, an incredible amount of patience and love. And if you lack any of that, and you want to grab the nearest distraction who claims that they're going to heal you overnight, you're probably fooling yourself. I mean, if that were the case, wouldn't you think that hordes, literally hordes of people would be miraculously healed on this planet every week? But that doesn't happen.
I had an experience when I took some essence. It was a flower essence, supposedly to bring soul parts back, that I started remembering things from the 13-year-old me. I don't know if I don't believe that bits of us split off.
Well, the flower essence is a very physical, practical thing. It affects your physical electronics. It affects your cellular level. It affects the chemical makeup in your body, your endocrine system. And if you study the body, you will find that your personality is based upon the structure and health of your endocrine system. Your entire personality is based upon your hormones, and your hormones are created by your endocrine system. If you have an imbalance in your endocrine system, you will have an imbalance in your hormones, and therefore you will have an imbalance in your personality, your thought processes, your emotions, everything. So if you end up taking a flower essence or herbal remedies or things like this, go to acupuncture, that will help to reset these physical systems, yes, you will notice differences.
Oh, I see. All right. So what is the way of making sure that you're perfectly healthy in that way, or your endocrine system is perfectly healthy?
Well, that's another thing I don't believe in. I don't believe in perfect health. We live in a very, very toxic planet, a very hostile planet, and it takes a great deal of focus to maintain acceptable levels of health. But I think it's such an incredible stress on our bodies just being here that to obtain optimal health and keep that on a level is, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who can do it, but I think it's rare. I think what we have a better chance of doing is increasing the health levels that we have to more acceptable levels. And that comes down to, again, starts off with very physical things. Proper diet, proper exercise, alleviating stress, making sure that, you remove yourself as much as possible from, excess electrical stimulation, drugs, and anything that your body does not absolutely need. It should be avoided as much as possible. And then on a spiritual aspect, really getting in touch with who you are, what you really like, your core, your connections, what makes you happy, what you care about, and start to weed through all the things that stress you out, that don't bring you productivity, that don't manifest for your best interest, and to start weeding those out, find any addictions you have to them, and trace that back through your brain to past instances and experiences that created those addictions in the first place. Work to resolve those so that you can break those addictions and you can be free of them, so that you can embrace further aspects of who you truly are, not what trauma has created and made you think you are as life has gone on. I mean, in a nutshell, that's pretty much the base principle that I have been using and have been finding great results in. There's also another thing that helps to retrain the brain. And if you can retrain the brain, then of course you can retrain how all of the systems connected to the brain, endocrine, digestive, circulatory, respiratory, nervous system, how all of that functions. And it's through biofeedback.
Right.
And there's a company called Hart Math, HEARTMATH. I believe they're based out of California. They have some pretty incredible products. I actually got one of their carry-along devices that monitors my heart rate and my breathing rate and my heart and breath coherence level that I can watch and that I can utilize to cross-check that throughout my daily day. And then you can since I don't have an iPhone or anything, I plug that in to my computer, and it brings me to my program and shows me all, in amazingly detail, all the graphs of exactly what my heart rhythm is doing, what my breath rhythm is doing, where the coherence level is, where I need improvement. Has many different levels and degrees that you can practice with. But they have some that comes right in your iPhone, some that goes right in your computer. There's therapists out there that are actually using the advanced technology to where they have it all set up on the computer screen, and they put a little... it registers the electronic waves of your brain and shows you exactly what it's doing, and then they work with you on your thought processes, identifying them, finding out which ones are creating which energetic waves on the graph, and it literally helps your consciousness connect with your subconsciousness to find out what's happening in your head, so that you can start to train yourself how to think more clearly and in a more positive direction, and retrain the brain waves so that they take on a more relaxed, coherent state of existence. It's pretty incredible technology. It really is.
And that is the Hart Math. They're doing
Yes.
that, or somewhere else? Oh, the Hart Math.
Well, Hart Math has technology that you can buy personally, but there's a lot of people trained through Hart Math that are doing this on a larger scale.
Right.
Yes.
That sounds fascinating. I often find that in the mornings I think, oh, I'm going to have a positive day. I'm going to try and earn money and get things sorted. And then the time ticks by. And then I find that I'm picking my son up from school and I haven't done absolutely anything. It's weird. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It happens every day. I don't know what's going on, Weird.
Yeah, our brains get lost in distraction. And a lot of
Yeah.
the distraction, from my understanding, from what I've been experiencing in my own studies over the past number of years, is that a lot of these distractions are based in traumas that we have running inside of us that we have not found or resolved yet. And as long as they're running, then they interfere on a subconscious level, and can even on a conscious level, interfere with our thought processes. And if that's interfering with our thought processes, then it interferes in everything we're trying to create and accomplish in life.
Mm.
Because a traumatized part of the brain is actually locked in what I call no time. It's locked during the time frame of the original trauma.
Oh.
It does not have a time frame, a linear time frame like the consciousness. The subconscious doesn't work like that. Subconscious doesn't believe in linear time frame. And so if you had trauma when you were 13 years old, and it was deep enough that it left a mark, that part of your brain that remembers that trauma will hold on to that trauma and relive it continuously, because time has never moved on to that part of your brain. And unless you can use very real techniques to trace back and make connections to that part of your brain and unlock it and resolve the trauma, that part of your brain will be locked there as long as you're alive in this life, and it will continually interfere subconsciously with conscious thought processes and everything, like I said, you're trying to manifest in this life.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I woke up this morning and I had an idea for a novel I've been writing, and I thought, oh, I'm going to write it. And I went and did the school run, came back, parked my car, came in the house, and immediately someone had trolled me on YouTube, and then the negative spiral, it just started. And it was, they said something else and it just went completely down and down, and it triggered other memories, and before I knew it, I hadn't done this very positive thing of write the synopsis for the novel. It
yeah.
was horrible, just a waste of 6 hours feeling like shit.
It is when you get lost, and I know because I live with complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And that's one reason most of the time these days I avoid the internet and a lot of interactions, because I know that small things can trigger these areas of trauma and these damaged areas of the brain. And they can set me into a tailspin.
Yeah.
And once you get into that tailspin, like you said, it can take hours or days to really pull yourself out.
It can, yeah.
And so the best thing is, if it's feasibly possible in one's life, is to try to remove, at least for a while, until you can get a good handle on it, remove yourself from exposure to things that could set those downward spirals off, because it's
shitty friends. I mean, I had a friend. I would go out with her, and she was okay. And then at some point, she would say something that would trigger me. That I would literally the next day I would have to spend in bed. Then I would have to sugar out on donuts, and it took me literally a week to get over. Something that she would say. I mean, it seems. I mean, you can't just stay on your own with sort of no triggers and no internet, but I think you can learn what does trigger you and kind of minimize it as much as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, whatever's feasibly possible. I mean,
Yeah.
these days, if you have a business and you have a life, it's really hard to become a hermit. And it's also not very good for your healing, because if you become a hermit, then you're lost in your own thoughts. And,
Yeah.
a lot of times that's just as destructive as being triggered all the time.
Yeah.
So, having a really, really solid support system that understands your condition, I find has been a very literal lifesaver in my own life. And yes, I have some friends who also have in the past, not purposely, but accidentally or unknowingly triggered me with just something they brought up or said. And, I had to, after I pulled myself out of the downward spiral, got myself back in center, I had to then communicate, very neutrally and very, with an air of understanding, communicate with them and say, okay, look, I know that you didn't mean any of this, but the trauma areas in my brain took it as this way. And because I do not have full control of those yet, I didn't have control over how I took your comment. And even though it wasn't your fault, it really set me back a lot. And so, this is where I am. And so I'm bringing this to you as a friend saying, there are fragile areas in me, vulnerable areas in me. And as a friend, I need you to know this so that our communication can be done in a very aware and gentle state, if necessary. And that seems to work very well, at least in my life.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I've got an issue at the moment. My brother has moved into my adopted mother's house, and she died, leaving some money, not much, to me and my brother. But he's the executor, and literally he was so abusive when we were growing up. I mean, my father was sexually abusive, my mother was violent, and my brother was sexually abusive and violent. And he used to say, I'm going to make your life a misery every single day to me. And he always carried through with that. He was malignant, and they all presented to the outside world that they were, really nice, respectful family. And I was the scapegoat, the bad one, etc. And he's sitting, our adopted mother died, and he kind of moved into the house. He's supposed to sell it, and I desperately need the money, and he's not selling it, and he's purposely going with people that don't really want it and delaying. And it's almost like, because I'm in the grip of needing money at the moment, it's almost like he's got me back in childhood where all my trauma took place with him, and he's sort of saying it to me again, I'm going to make your life a misery. And it's just, it's so hard for me to function normally when that's going on, because it's brought up, I'm back as a kid again somehow,
Yes, I do. And I feel for you. It's a very tough situation because from what I've learned, the only way that situations like that can be dissolved to where they don't drag you down and affect you in negative manners is to be able to, to do a very difficult thing, and that's to heal the parts of yourself that were traumatized during those time frames of your life, especially by someone who was the oppressor. I had to do that with my mother. I mean, I did. I hated my mother for years and years and years. But, there came a point where I said, this is not serving me at all. I cannot carry this hate. I cannot carry this anger towards her anymore. And so I tried to dissolve that. And I realized I couldn't. I found it to be an impossibility for me to dissolve that hate and anger towards her until I could do something that I never thought I would be able to do. And that was forgive her. I worked for quite a few years to learn how to forgive her, through also forgiving myself and understanding that it wasn't my fault, and understanding that she today is not the same person I grew up with. She has done a lot of work to embrace her own healing and personal evolution, and I saw that and respected that. And even though I cannot accept what she used to be and what she did to me and my siblings as children, I can accept her for who she is today. And in that acceptance, I can forgive the woman who used to be. And it took a lot of work. It took a lot of time. But today we have a very stable relationship. We live on the opposite sides of the country, so that helps. But we do communicate on a regular basis. And that has freed up a great deal for me in the trauma aspect that was tied to her in childhood. But I had to do that work first.
Mm.
And it's not easy
Yeah,
work.
I guess I could forgive my brother, forgive him what he's doing now, forgive his weakness. It's kind of weakness all the time, isn't it? To hurt
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah, it is. And people who hurt other people are victims themselves. They're hurting other people because they have been hurt in some way and they are locked in that trauma and they don't have any other way. They don't understand how else to express it and how to heal it. And so they get
Mm,
locked in the oppressor mode. And an oppressor is nothing more than a victim who doesn't have another way to express that pain. And it doesn't make what they're doing okay. It just makes our awareness a little bit grander to look behind what they're doing and say, this is a person who is in pain and who needs help. They don't need my hate. They need help. And maybe I'm not the one to help them, but I understand from that level why they're doing what they're doing. And it really doesn't have anything to do with me. It all has to do with them and the suffering that they're living with inside. And so it brings another perspective to forgiveness and acceptance into the picture. And it's a very difficult one for a lot of people because it's so much easier to throw anger and hate and say, pity poor me, and become the victim than it is
mm,
to buck up and say, I understand, most people are living in a state of pain and suffering on some level,
mm,
and not everybody is going to express it like I do.
mm,
They're not going to have the tools or the skills, and they
mm,
need help. And so maybe I should put more of my focus, instead of hate and aggression toward them and what they're doing, to organizations, people, and maybe even them that work to help people
mm,
like them.
mm, mm. I have to say, I've been dwelling in hatred all week. I mean, I've been texting my brother, calling him a loser, and, God, you haven't even left the childhood home and you're middle-aged, and just hatred. Yeah, I just felt so
Yeah.
angry that he feels like my oppressor. It's weird you say that word. He does feel that oppressor, that
Hmm.
it's horrible to be oppressed, isn't it? And yeah, I suppose you have to just forgive them, even though they're hurting.
Yeah, I mean, all that anger and that oppressive energy that you have felt this week and that you have directed back, you
Mm,
have been the victim and you have also been an oppressor by
mm,
throwing that anger and that hate back. You
mm.
know, really, what has that gained you this week?
Nothing.
Yeah,
Wasting my time, really. Yeah.
yeah. There are more productive ways,
Mm,
and it takes time. And again, it's very important, I found, never to beat yourself up over it. We all make mistakes, every one of us. None of us are perfect. We will all fall, but it's the will to get back up and say, okay, I accept I made that mistake and I'm going to try again and I'm going to try to be better, more productive, more beneficial this time. And if you fall again, don't kick yourself because that just makes it all worse. Just get back
mm,
up, brush it off, and say it again, and just keep
mm,
at it.
mm, mm. Oh, it's been fantastic. I've just got a little note from my producer to say we're running out of time. It's been
Yes.
excellent having you. You've been a fantastic guest, and I'm sure all my listeners will agree. I mean, I've had some little notes during the show saying, "Oh, really enjoying this," and a great guest. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
you've been a lovely guest.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's been great being here, and I don't expect everybody who listens to this to agree, and I don't want them to agree with everything I've said. That's not the purpose. I'm just kind of sharing my opinions, and that's it. If people enjoy it, wonderful. If it helps some people, even better. So
And your story has been fantastic. Where can people find you? You're not on Facebook or anything, are you?
no, I don't like Facebook.
You don't do that.
No, you can go to my website. I have two websites. The one is elementmountain.com.
Right.
And the other
Mm-hmm.
one is smallcirclesof5animalsjujitsu.com, which you can directly linked to from Element Mountain if you can't find it. But if you just search in White Wolf Jiu-Jitsu, it'll come up on Google. I have a whole website dedicated to the martial art there as well. Students communicate on there. I have the Wolf's Den, which is a paid membership section. It's only $16 a month, where people can read well over 1,000 articles that I put on my website, and then they can engage in discussion, comments, and whatnot. We got a really good group of people in there. No slander, no trolls, no backstabbing. It's a very fresh area. And I'm also on Twitter. So those are pretty much the main areas that you can find me.
Excellent. What's your name on Twitter?
I don't know. Just go to my website and go all the way to the bottom, and there's a link to Twitter.
Okay,
just click
cool.
on that link, and it'll bring you to my page.
Excellent. And if people want to speak to you, you've got your email, have you, on your website?
Yeah, the email's on the website, absolutely. And I also have a number of books out on Smashwords and Amazon, but you can link to those on my site also. And I'm on LinkedIn as well for the professional aspect.
What's the title of your books? You just run through the titles?
Yeah, let's see. I've got Shadow Scorpion, Memoirs of an Assassin. That's my autobiography. And then I have PTSD, Living with the Beast, and that kind of describes my path through complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and what I've discovered, and also the healing techniques that I have found to be very potent for me personally. Also have for the nature lovers, I have a Tantalizing Wild Greens cookbook of recipes that I have come up with over the years. I have Survival, Heat Loss, and Microclimates, where I go into detail on that aspect. I have a couple books of wilderness rescues that I was part of. Unexpected Wilderness Rescues on Mount Katahdin and the Loyalsock Trail. And Man on the Mountain, a true story of survival at 13,000 feet.
Oh, excellent.
So those are my main ones that I have out there.
Brilliant. I'm sure the listeners will be Googling away. Well, it's been fantastic having you on, and I hope you'll come back at some time, and hope you'll go away now and be nice to yourself after can be quite sort of exhausting, all that emotional sharing, can't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. And, I've actually had to conserve my energy for a week to do this show.
Oh, yeah.
Because with the cortisol and the adrenal fatigue or exhaustion, it steals the energy from the lungs. And so talking can be exhausting. And so, yes, I will probably not talk for a couple days after this.
Well, you've done so well. And, I just let you flow because it was just so interesting. And so I just let you flow. But yeah, so you go and be good to yourself, because it can just draining. You've relived so much trauma, and your life has been really, really hard, and you've been really, really brave, and it's been sort of, you've had to go through that for us tonight. And yeah, well done you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I do the best I can, and like I said, it's one of the reasons I live up in the mountains of northern Vermont, because it's a very conducive place to my healing. And yes, you're a great interviewer, a great host, and I appreciate you having me on here. And if the time comes where you want to talk about something else, give me a holler, and we'll see what we can hook up with.
Oh, brilliant. That would be fantastic. So what time is it now with you? Are you going to have your day ahead of you, or is it night time?
It's 4 p.m., 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. You're not that far behind us. It's 9 o'clock at night here. Everything's dark. And yeah, so this is your host. It's Christine Joanna Hart. You can find me on Facebook, and you can email me. My email is warnernews@sky.com, or PM me on Facebook, or catch me on my YouTube channel, Christine Joanna Hart. And I'd like to say thanks to Patrick English. Patrick, are you there?
Yes, I am, Christine.
Thanks very much for producing tonight.
Very welcome. Great show.
Thank you. Here comes the end of the show. and it's been a really interesting show. My guest has been one of my favorites. So thanks very much, White Wolf. You're a star.
Thank you.
Thanks.
God bless.
God bless you.
Lots of love. And thanks ever so much, Patrick, for producing. That's Patrick English has produced the show tonight. Thanks to all my listeners. God bless.
God bless you.